Hello, everyone. I am going to read to you all of Chapter 3 of my book, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy. And not that anyone cares, but I promised myself I would do this series every week, so I will. Um, but now this is a unique chapter because it's one of only two chapters I think that doesn't have any dialogue whatsoever. It's pure atmosphere, which this is essentially describing the industrial town, the noxious fumes, all of that. So it's a very atmospheric um, chapter for that reason. And this is Edward's narrative. Chapter 3, Harrisville, Edward's narrative. Before my gaze even descended upon Harrisville, my nostrils fervently shuddered. It was like inhaling the breath of hell, and with every exhalation a part of my soul perished. High over the mountain peaks flurries of ash tainted the purities in the sky, like drops of blood defiling the majesties of water. Industrial mists intermingled with the pearly clouds, their hazel hues expelling all lustrous enrichments. Once possessing a pellucid sanguinity, the refined lambencies in the horizon were supplanted by the imperious brooms of industrialization. Reminiscent of tumultuous cyclones, it almost seemed as if the noxious vapors ascended out of the rancorous apertures of the earth. I watched the respirations of the world gyrate into a mirthless perdition, one which defaced the luminaries of creation. As the mist of dawn thickened, I at last vacated the sea of emerald timber, once again returning to the sycophantic drudgeries of communal life. The silky hazes whispered to the faces of day, envious of the light of restitution. In some ways they resembled clouds soaring over astral glistenings. They stifled the resurrection of diurnal artistries, just as dreams repress the emancipation of consciousness. In the end, nature is simply an instrument for the symphonies of men. Wandering through the sorrows of the fog, a succession of dilapidated edifices greeted my lethargic senses. From a distance they were like industrial phantoms, asymmetrical, inelegant, and unsupple. The rains of time had cleansed the portentous lustres from the rooftops, much like a gray dawn exorcising sheens from a translucent lake. The rectangular configurations of glass, at one time polished and pristine, had fallen prey to the gales of frigid alchemy. Even as the sun stroked the cracks that were conduits for nature's vicissitudes, the strands of refined snow only lightly drizzled, for they insolently clung to the promises of the slumbering moon. They knew that heat was a fleeting treasure, whereas frigidity was an indelible acquisition. The throng of indistinguishable countenances did not entice my disaffected senses. Every frivolous gaze, whether demonstrative or adversarial, was no more tangible to me than a dream that fades into the light of day. I was like a lonely star surrounded by the blackness of space, by the vacuousness of celestial sleep. I was a candle illuminating portraitures that had once been sentient, exemplifying the altruisms of the world, but had since relinquished the lifebloods of enlightenment. To them, the melodies of rain were like elusive whispers in the wind, and the embrace of the sun was like an amorous love letter that never made it home. People are born as ghosts, but die as memories. We haunt the radiances of life, and eventually even our thoughts become spectral. Our odysseys become blind to heaven's graces, to the splendid torches of eternity, and when the flames are extinguished, only the chimes of bewitched memories remain. The circumambient throngs of doleful gates synced their limbers with the transcendental chimes, no longer autonomous tangentials, but syphophantic notes in a cerebral ballad of phantasmagoric regalement. There was no time within their hearts, for the slough of clemency had sailed from their shores long ago. Upon turning the next corner, my tawny orbs winced as the artificial fluorescences that placated the face of night descended into opalescence, like rivers weary of philanthropic tangerines. The disquieted windows were enshrined with posh mists, each nebulous liaison another jewel from the depths of misanthropic modernity. It was like watching an array of sumptuous clouds absorb the esteemed violets of the earth, like gazing into a fountain that metamorphosed all light into dissonant breaths of sorrow. I was in a world without pensive mornings, without the gift of enlightened fervors. It was a world where death was reminiscent of a cool spring, and where life was an aimless wanderer. Meandering further into the streets that were blind to all sultry fervors, I noticed that the flurries of soot melded with the curtains of snow, as though drawn to the innocuous viscosities that besought the laurels of April passions. The frost gyrated through the rapacious streams of ash, forever ensconced within the ammonic dynasties of urbanization. Every flake was evocative of ensanguined moons, the centers of which seduced my thoughts. In that moment, I was neither body nor spirit, but a capricious lucidity soaring through time. Just as my senses started to stabilize, I saw it, the edifice that turned all autumnal dreams into nightmarish winters. The thunderous funnels, serpentine and limbersome, disseminated sulphurous toxicities into the unblemished heavens. Even the azures of auroral acrimonies, once considered to be the saving graces of diurnal machinations, were ensnared by the miasmas that had vociferously longed for nature's fealty. It almost appeared as though an external tempest lingered over Harrisville. It was a place where daylight was a fanciful dream, where winter was an indelible apparition, and where even the most modest of aspirations congealed into disillusioned frosts. The barred windows, stolid and imperious, were like streaks of ice concealing the darkness of a vast ocean. Every aperture contained a haunted emptiness, the origins of which remained imprisoned within the tempest of nihilistic modernity. Eroded and pallid, the brick walls shuddered in response to the quavering chimneys, as if desperate to escape the grasp of hell. I remembered when the factory had just opened its doors. The luxuriant scarlet hues, like youthful rivers, washed over the walls with an enriching vivacity. Spring was its most beloved companion, and even the rain, normally an elemental adversary, became a nourishing endearment. As the sultry dews of spring acquiesced to the timorous etherealities of phantom frosts, the light within the windows was lost to shadowless remembrances, like a freshly cultivated grave succumbing to preternatural corrosions. The tawdry pigmentations were bedimmed by fastidious pallors, forever enslaved to the incantations of cosmic musings. Some people say that death is the preeminent enemy of life, but what they often fail to comprehend, mostly through no fault of their own, is that one cannot die if they have never truly lived. There are some things worse than death. Every time a tear passes from our eyes, we die a little inside. When rubicant leaves descend from trees, our hearts quiver, become acrimonious. In such moments, we start to realize that consciousness itself is a prison, and that life, in its purest incarnation, is the jailer of dreams. And that is all of chapter 3. That was a rather short chapter because it was just kind of an atmospheric chapter. Chapter 4 is far longer. And so that basically sets up the atmosphere within Harrisville. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I have set up a playlist with all of the chapters I've done so far in the comment section, and hopefully I will get to reading the next chapter next week. So goodbye for now.